Hi there, I'm Daniel J. Rocha, your weather-wise astrologer, where we forecast weather for season and soul. Today, we're diving into the energetic forecast for May 12th to May 20th, 2025, what it means, what's already unfolded, and what to keep your eye on for the coming days. Just a quick reminder, this weather analysis is for Toronto, Ontario and surrounding area, as that is where I live. However, do note that the planetary influences are indeed global. If you wish to see forecasts and charts for your area, or if you're looking to gain deeper insights into your life and your mission, let me know in the comments below, or simply reach out to me for a reading. Timestamps are below if you want to skip to your favorite parts, but I highly recommend sticking around for the full vibe dive. So just a bit of a recap here so we can gain some context. That spring 2025 Aries Ingress was a very bold one. It kicked off with both Uranus and Pluto being very strongly placed in this chart. And we see that Mercury and Venus were both retrograde and they both went back into the sign of Pisces, meaning we could have seen a slippage back into winter in the early spring. Now, we live in Canada, so this is a pretty regular occurrence, but even if you're in other places of the world, remember the planetary influences still apply. And when we're talking about these planets in retrograde, Venus and Mercury, this is a theme for the 3 months. So Venus does not like being in the sign of Aries. And as a matter of fact, I'll say it's very impulsive and very passionate. And so blowups are probably a theme for this season, especially with Uranus, the planet of surprises, very strongly placed in this chart. And with Mercury retrograde, we do have to be wary of how we communicate. And so there is this like semblance of going backwards in a way. And when these planets went into the sign of Pisces, and they did, and I can just animate that here for you. I'm going to go by days. You will see that it's a bit confusing because all the planets are shifting, but you'll see that they did in fact go back into the sign of Pisces. And what that meant was we indeed went back into the winter season. And going backwards also applies to maybe we felt like we're going backwards in life, or there were stalls in life that were happening. So these two planets, Uranus and Pluto, even though they're not directly connected by a square, they are having a very strong influence on the weather. They're creating intense gusty winds and squalls, which we have seen plenty of. And this hasn't been typical of spring. As a matter of fact, with Uranus so strongly placed, this has been a very surprising spring season. And its quick shifts never fail to amaze us, as we've seen intense fluctuations of not only temperature, but airflow. And so we had this surprise ice storm that just bulldozed right through our area here. And our neighbors to the south there in the US, we've seen a very early tornado season that has kicked up. And not even in Tornado Alley per se. I mean, there have been tornadoes there already as I'm making this video, but further to the east. The lessons that have been imparted to you this season, whether they be from the weather or from your emotions or the people around you, these have been tough lessons this spring season, to be sure. But I want you to ask yourself, how has the shock value of these lessons compelled you to transform your life or your way of doing things for the better? So this is the full moon chart, May 12th, 2025, and this goes until the next lunar phase, which is happening around May 20th, 2025. And that's how we determine the timings for these charts. I'm going to be doing the simplified version first, and then we will be moving on to a more astrologically in-depth version. If you're an astrologer, you can skip to that part if you wish, or you can stick around. All right, there are a few hot spots in the chart here that I want to go over. First, one of the most powerful points of the chart here, that cusp of the 4th, we have the moon in Scorpio. This is a very intense transformational energy, and the moon is chilly, it's wet, and it's changeable. Moon moves the weather, it moves the tides, it brings in rain. But I have to look at more than this to verify that. But this definitely is going to have a very powerful influence, and especially in our part of the world here. And we look now to Leo on the cusp of the first house, and there's no planets here in the first, because that's where I'm looking for that 25% of this forecast. And so I look at the ruler of Leo, which is the sun. And so this becomes the big hot spot. We see what the sun is doing. And the sun usually brings in warmth, and especially in the sign of Taurus, there's a lot of Taurian influence here, which is it brings in temperance. It's associated with Venus, and so it's supposed to moderate the weather. But we may not see that because of this really powerful influence of the moon in Scorpio opposing it there. And we have a bit of a stellium happening here, although Saturn is still in Pisces. I'll get to that in a second. So here we have the natal chart promise fulfilled, where Uranus was strongly placed in the natal chart. It is also strongly placed here as it is in conjunction with the sun and very close to that arrow, which represents the MC, another powerful point of this chart. And I look to here where Mercury is, and it's not influencing us just yet, but it will be moving in to this area here with the sun and Uranus, and it's a very windy planet as well. But Uranus is more intensely windy. It's the higher octave of Mercury. So we're going to probably see towards the end of this lunation cycle, maybe from May 18th to May 20th, being quite a windy time. And again, these planets are thematic. So where these planetary lines line up in the locational chart, we may see those charts in it being particularly affected, but definitely surprises, windy, and some intense weather happening here. The other important thing to note is that in the 10th house, this is public. And so when I see something close to the MC, especially Uranus and the sun involved together, and Mercury coming into the fold, we could see a record-setting event. This could be a powerful wind squall or some kind of record-setting event that's coming up for this lunation phase. And I'm going to animate the chart here so you can see the planets shifting on the wheel, but also take note of how the planets are moving up and down towards the equator and into the north and south tropics here via the declination chart, because where they're positioned matters. And if they are doing some kind of wacky, wild conjunction or aspect in the wheel and in declination, that's definitely more than two testimonies or two dimensions speaking to some weather events. And so we're going to forward to this May 18th to May 20th. We'll kind of make our way there and see kind of what's happening. And what I'm looking for are any planets passing the very powerful angles of the chart, 4th, 7th, 10th, and 1st, and also via declination. I've moved forward the chart just ahead one day, and you see the moon is out of bounds in the declination chart, meaning it's a lot further south than it should be. And that just means it kind of goes out of whack a little bit. Not really doing anything in the chart itself right now, but it is in the 4th. So again, having a strong influence there. And I'm just going to forward the chart here. And now we see that the sun and Uranus forming both a powerful conjunction here in the 10th, but also via declination. And if I forward the chart just a little bit more, then we're going to see that the moon is actually going to be passing through Pluto, both via declination and through the chart. So May the 18th, I really feel like this is the start of something happening here, especially as the sun has finished its aspect with Uranus. And this could mean some stronger winds, some record-setting events potentially, and especially as the moon in the 20th passes the powerful 7th angle of this chart going into the sign of Pisces. And when Mercury catches up to the sun, we're going to be past this lunation phase now. But I'm curious as to what's going to happen around this time, because when Mercury forms a tight conjunction with the sun and the moon passing through it, they're all in the sign of Aries. So this could be activating here in this part of the chart around the 28th of May as well. So I wanted to show you the solar maps chart here. This is that same chart put into solar maps, and you'll see here that Uranus line. And again, Uranus is the planet of surprises. It can be quick shifting weather, temperatures. It's important to note too that Uranus does raise the barometer, and it can bring some of those really crisp, sunny days as well. And with such a close influence of the sun, it could be speaking to that. But again, we had that really powerful placement of the moon in Scorpio, and that's kind of chilling here as well. And so we kind of had this strong influence on the East Coast here, especially with the United States. And I also go to the Mercury influence here, intersecting with that Mars, and Mercury being a windy planet. Mars moves wind as well, but Mars also brings about dryness and heat. With these influences of the cold influence of Uranus here and a windy and Mars influence here, there could be something very interesting happening in this area, which we have been seeing with the season so far. But this chart kind of speaks to it yet again, and it could be something a little bit more profound. Or with that Sun and Uranus and the Jupiter influence that I talked about earlier, we could be seeing some very crisp sunny days. But I think we're definitely going to be seeing a mishmash. This is a bit of a harder forecast because we've had some very strong fixed sign influences in the chart. That's Scorpio and Leo and Taurus. Fixed signs are very stubborn and very long lasting. And I'm going to say too, with Uranus having been in the sign of Taurus, it also has an influence on the jet stream. And with the sign of Taurus, it's a very fixed jet stream. It could cause pockets of stubbornness, so to speak. And the jet stream could be doing some kind of wacky, zany things where it traps certain pockets of systems, low pressure systems, high pressure systems in place, which spawns a lot of these extreme weather events, but also causing them to be a little more persistent. In the chart, the moon was on the cusp of the 7th, so it's very strongly placed as well, and as is Uranus and the sun. And you'll see that these lines intersect through Washington, D.C. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens on the geopolitical landscape, something that may take us by surprise. And the moon going right through Toronto and Buffalo there's going to be some kind of emotional sweep. And being in the sign of Pisces, something that may generate a little bit more sympathy, a little bit more compassion, but also really force us to look at our boundaries and perhaps even our borders. So what this means energetically, thematically for us, especially if you're a fixed sign, Scorpio, Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, you may be feeling like something's just beneath the surface that needs to come into public view, or that you need to have other people's input on. And this may apply even if you're not a fixed sign, but I'm going to say especially a fixed sign, you're feeling that powerful pull right now. And that moon during this phase is also going into the sign of Sagittarius, which means that you may be feeling a shift to really explore something new at this time. And factoring in that we're in the last decan of Taurus, we're going to be going into the season of Gemini shortly. That windy shift is definitely at the forefront. And I invite you to explore some of these cosmic influences for yourself and how these energies influence you on a deeper level. If you check out my ebook, The Cosmic Mirror, the link is in the description below, you can work on your natal chart and understand some astrological fundamentals so that you can interpret your own chart and see how these energies play out for you. If this video resonated with you, leave a comment below. Let me know how this lunation phase has been influencing your life. And if you enjoy my content, hit like, share with your astrology loving friends, and I would really appreciate if you subscribed. It goes a long way. I'll make more content just like this. Thank you so much for sharing this journey with me in the Weatherwise corner of the cosmos, where we forecast weather for season and soul. Take care.